Welcome to Common Sense Connecticut, where we look at the news and events that will shape the state of Connecticut. Your host is Gary Byron.
Good evening and welcome to Common Sense Connecticut. I'm Gary Byron. Our first guest tonight is the Communications Director at the Bushnell. It's Paul Marty. Paul, welcome to Common Sense Connecticut.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Paul, the Bushnell is so legendary.
Yes, it is.
You know, it's been around for eons. Well, let's go back to the year that it actually was opened.
All right.
Okay.
It was 1930. About 83 years ago.
Holy smokes.
And this is my favorite story about the early years of the Bushnell. It was named for Horace Bushnell, who was a big preacher and really environmentalist, created Bushnell Park here in Hartford. He was a big mover and shaker and really well known as a clergyman. But he didn't have money, he was not wealthy, he did not build the Bushnell. It was actually built by his daughter Dotha as a memorial to him. She married fairly well. So she married into the Hilliard family, and she had money from her husband, which she had invested in the stock market. And the money did very well in the stock market, and she decided it was time to build this memorial hall to her father. So she took all her money out of the stock market in preparation to build it in January of 1929. And if she had waited just 10 more months till the stock market crashed, there would be no Bushnell Memorial. There would be no Bushnell Hall or anything else. And it was not like she could time the market back then. She just took it out when she was ready to build it and was able actually to keep a lot of people working through the Depression building this memorial to her father.
And how is that in relation to Bushnell Park? Other than, it's the same name, same family.
Right, and we're very adjacent to Bushnell Park. The Capitol's on one side of the building. Bushnell Park is down Elm Street there. And actually, we're at the Bushnell very involved in what's called the iQuilt Project, which will knit together lots of the green areas of the city, really connecting many of the arts institutions in Hartford. More green space will bring water back to the park. And it's a multi-year project. It's going to take a long time to accomplish, but it's part of what will help revitalize downtown Hartford. And it really fulfills Horace Bushnell's vision of creating these wonderful green spaces and an environmental positive atmosphere in Hartford.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What makes, though, the Bushnell Hall, what makes it so legendary?
Well, we have two halls, but we start back with our original space, which is now called Mortensen Hall. And it is an absolutely beautiful theater. If you go in, the interior and the exterior are very different. The exterior of the building is very reminiscent of old New England. You see echoes of the Capitol building there. The dome is similar to the Capitol, which is across the street. It almost looks like a church, which reminds you, of course, of what Horace Bushnell was, a preacher.
Yeah.
You walk into Mortensen Hall, into the Bushnell facility, and it is a fabulous Art Deco masterpiece with the largest painted mural on the ceiling on the East Coast. There's some factoid I should know about that better, but it's this gorgeous mural designed by the same person that did Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, really?
So it is in that Art Deco style of the period inside, very showbiz, very fanciful, very ornate, and you've got the very New England reserved church-like facade of the Bushnell. So it sort of marries both sides of Horace Bushnell's life and is an absolutely beautiful place to go see a show.
Now, they've added on to it, right?
Yep. In 2000, we added a second part, which is now the Belding Theater, which is a 900-seat theater. The Mortensen Hall holds about 2,800 people. It's a large facility where we usually do the Broadway touring shows, some of the larger concerts that come through. And in the Belding, we will do things like the Hartford Symphony. It has really wonderful acoustics in there. And truly, in the Belding, there's not a bad seat. It's a very small, intimate theater. And technologically, it is state-of-the-art. So the Belding is wonderful for smaller, more intimate things, especially when you need superior sound.
would bands be more? You're talking about symphonies and orchestras, and they're more suited because of the acoustics to one room.
Yep, and the acoustics are very good in the Mortensen. People like working in there, and it has actually a huge pipe organ that most people don't know about. And the acoustics of this organ are gorgeous. I was in there last week, and they were doing a rehearsal with the organ, and it's just amazing what you could hear in there.
You're talking about how the history of it and how you want to maintain that historic look, and it's a classic look at that. But yet, you also want to bring a more contemporary feel with some of the artists that you're bringing in, and so on and so forth. How are you able to balance, a classic look, yet a more contemporary feel? That's got to be challenging.
Well, it's all goes back to what the community is interested in. We are a nonprofit organization, so we serve the community, and the community has a variety of interests. And some of them are very classical with things like the Symphony or the Connecticut Forum, two of our big partners. Some are more traditional. People think of the Bushnell as a place to go for Broadway theater, and we have a magnificent Broadway series that Webster Bank and Travelers sponsor for us every year. And then we have one-night concerts or performances, anything from Diana Ross, who's coming up. Mannheim Steamroller is coming. We've been doing a lot of what we call lifestyle programming. People like chefs that you see from reality TV coming and doing, like Heine Garten, what they do on TV, bringing it actually to people and seeing it live.
It's such an eclectic group of people that you would have for acts, but you said you really have your finger on the pulse of the people in which you're serving, and some of the people who attend these events. How do you have surveys? Do you have questionnaires that you ask, or do they just come up and volunteer their own opinion and say, "Oh, I'd love to have you get Wolfgang Puck on the show"?
The biggest way is, do they buy the tickets?
Okay.
I mean, that is the way that we know what people like, sort of what they're buying. We do surveys. We ask our audiences what they like to see. They're very responsive to us on Facebook. We've got a great Facebook page. My colleague Leah Firebaugh maintains Facebook, and she's great about communicating with people. So hop on Facebook if you want to talk to us, give us some suggestions. And also, we're out there, our programming people are out there seeing what's available to bring in. And so what will fit into our schedule, what fits into a schedule of a particular person that wants to come through. So there are lots of pieces of the puzzle that go together, but it is about serving the community and exposing them to some things they might not be familiar with, at the same time also giving them what they want. So.
What would make then a really good performance or an act, if you will, that's best suited for the Bushnell, as opposed to another theater or Dave Matthews Band would not be perfect for the Bushnell?
It could be. He would work very well in Mortensen.
What criteria, though, that the Bushnell looks for? Like, this would be an ideal match.
Is it going to sell 2,800 seats for X number of performances?
Okay.
That's one of the things we're looking at when we're booking a Broadway series. Is it something that our core audience of season ticket holders is going to like? Is it something that may be a little challenging that they want to be exposed to? And that might be something we bring in once a year, something that's a little different that they haven't seen. For Peter and the Starcatcher next year is a perfect example of that. Tony Award-winning show that not many people know about, and it takes a little bit of education, but I think our audience is going to be totally delighted when they see that next year. It's a fantastic show. Other things when they come in, we're trying to bring back more comedians to the Bushnell.
Really?
We used to host a lot of comedians, and then the big name comedians, the Jerry Seinfelds and the Kathy Griffins, started to want to do arenas where they could fill 10,000 seats, or maybe they'd fill 5,000 of 10,000 seats in an arena. The pendulum is swinging back, and comedians are realizing they want a slightly more intimate environment, and so they would rather do 2 shows in Mortensen at the Bushnell than 1 show at, say, one of the casinos, one of the arenas. So last year we had Louis C.K. in, had a hugely successful, sold out 2 performances in 1 night. And that's the thing I think in the coming years you'll see a little more comedy at the Bushnell. We used to do a lot of it. Past couple of years haven't done that much. Pendulum swinging back. The comedians want to come into this kind of venue again.
Are you strictly funded? You're nonprofit, right?
Not for profit.
Are you strictly funded by the sale of these tickets and the tours that you give? Or?
No, it is. We're about half funded by what our development office brings in from private donations. We've got very generous donors throughout the community, individual donors. We also then have corporate donors and sponsors, mostly local people like Webster Bank, Travelers, many other corporations in the Hartford area. Farmington Bank sponsored our whole season last year. So it's very important that we reach out to these people, and they've been very responsive in giving to the Bushnell. And then we also have our David Fay, who's our president, works very closely with the government, and we are looking for funding from city government, state government, even federal government when we can. And he's pretty good about getting that money.
You're talking about comedy, you talk about chefs and orchestras. And is there, on average, how many shows are there a year?
We fill probably, I would say, 250 performances a year, one way or another.
That's not necessarily 250 acts.
No.
Because there's multiple dates that these will have, that they will have.
Yep. So
is there a balance between how many concerts you'll have and how many theatrical productions that you'll host?
And, the theatrical stuff that we do, the Broadway stuff, typically runs for a week, 8 performances in 1 week. Most everything else we do is just a one-off, and they'll do 1 or maybe 2 performances. Occasionally we'll bring something in, like we had Potted Potter last year that did 2 weekends of performances. But for the most part, it's a lot of things that are just there for one night. A lot of community things. We host a lot of high school graduations. And apart from what you see on our stages, our facility is gorgeous. We've got lots of function areas. We host weddings, bar mitzvahs. Tonight, actually, right now, as we tape, someone's birthday is going on in the Great Hall. Gorgeous function space that we have. So Bushnell's available for rental for those kinds of events, bar mitzvahs.
And we're not talking about up on the stage.
People get married on the stage.
They get married on the stage at the Bushnell.
If we're dark at a particular night and the facility is available, we've hosted lots of weddings on stage. Yep. They will. Our events people will transform the stage in Mortensen or Belding into what looks like a wedding hall. It's fantastic.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, people love it.
How did you get into this?
I got into this by marrying a background in theater and a background in marketing.
Oh, okay. So you actually were a performer at one point yourself.
I did a lot of theater, both performing and then also on the production side as a stage manager. So I went to Northwestern University to get my master's in theater. My undergrad's from Emerson in speech communication. Then I got a job in theater at the Pittsburgh Public Theater. That was my first professional theater job. And that was in stage management. Got my equity card, went to New York, did a little bit of theater, lots of showcases, kind of lost interest in theater.
Really?
Decided, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my life? And people say, well, do what you love. I loved television. I loved magazines, the two media that I just loved. So I'm like, I'll find something to do in one of those. And I ended up getting into the magazine business on the publishing side, the marketing and sales side, and worked at the Meredith Corporation for a while, the longest period of time at Better Homes and Gardens magazine. And from there, I moved up to Connecticut. There's not a lot to do in the magazine business here. So I was looking for a marketing job. Public relations job happened to open at Hartford Stage. I did that temporarily for a couple of months, and they said, well, would you like to stay on permanently? We've looked at a lot of people. We like you best. Sure. So I stayed. I was 7.5 years there.
What were you doing there? You started off as...
I was just a temporary fill-in public relations person. And then I took the full-time job and became communications manager there and was there for 7.5 years, doing a very similar job to what I do now. But when you're working in a producing house, it's a very different kind of atmosphere and different kinds of demands than working in a presenting house, which the Bushnell is. Things tend to come to the Bushnell fully formed, whereas at Hartford Stage, everything is done from scratch.
Oh,
so
okay.
as I said, the hardest part about working at Hartford Stage is you're marketing something that doesn't exist. So you have to start by marketing an idea of what a show might be and sell it that way. Whereas here at Hartford Stage, you're marketing the Book of Mormon, and most people know what that is. There's all kinds of marketing material that come with that show, so you're not marketing something that is starting from scratch that doesn't exist.
So they're not competing against each other. They're actually opposite of one another.
Very opposite. Yeah, we don't. People say, who do you compete with? Is it the other theaters? Really not. Our big competition is people's time. There's so many things that they can be doing that to either keep them in downtown Hartford after working all day, or to get them to come back into downtown Hartford. That is our competition.
Is that a challenge? Because you and I both know Hartford gets a bad rap. Oh,
right.
People don't like they have to work in Hartford, and once that 5 o'clock comes, they are gone.
Yes.
And they'll go somewhere else. New Haven, Stamford, or even the suburbs now are opening up little, venues and so on and so forth. How do you get that audience back into Hartford after hours?
It has to be something really special that they want to see, and it all comes down to programming. It's what are you putting on your stages, and if people want to see it, they'll pay almost any amount of money to see it, and they'll come back into Hartford. And if they don't want to see it, it doesn't matter how low the prices are, or even if you're giving away tickets. They don't want to spend their time doing that. There's something more important they'd rather be doing. So it doesn't always come down to cost. It's really, how do I want to spend my precious free time?
Is there evidence that the performing arts in theater is more successful than a recording artist, like Diana Ross, for example, who you had mentioned at the top of the show, who you're bringing into the Bushnell? Granted, that's more of a one-off, but
right.
if you were to compare tit for tat, where a one-off, one night with a performing artist, I'm not going to necessarily pick on Diana Ross, mind you, and one night of a theatrical show on the performing arts, is there something that, or does it depend on the show and the artist?
It depends on the show.
Yeah.
It's all individualized on the show. It really, who wants to see it? Who's the audience? We do, if I may say, a very good job of marketing to different audiences, many different lists. If we have a concert coming in, we look at what have we presented before that's similar to that. We go to those lists of people to solicit them to buy tickets.
Is there a point of reference that you could use as a tool, for example, in other markets where, if you're bringing a show in, has this show been proven to be successful in other cities? And were there speed bumps? Were there any challenges and that you can foresee before booking them?
Yeah, we do that all the time. We talk to our colleagues at venues across the country.
Okay.
We have, we're doing a show called Warhorse next year, which is a magnificent show, also a Tony Award winner, but takes a lot of education of the audience. And we have, we're going through a period right now of doing a weekly conference call with all the theaters that are presenting it next year. We get on the phone with the national marketing representatives, and we discuss the challenges and the opportunities in marketing this show. So we listen to people who've presented it before. How were they successful? What were their challenges? How did they meet them? And we listen to the national marketing folks and what they can do for us. And then we take into account, we know our own audiences better than they do, so we tailor the information we're getting for the folks here in Central Connecticut.
What would you love to bring to Connecticut?
I am very excited this year that we're bringing Peter and the Starcatcher. And the following season, I'm hoping, because I just saw it on Broadway a while back, a show called Matilda, which was up for a Tony Award this year. And it is based on the children's book. It is one of the most magical shows I have seen in years. So it will be out on tour starting next year. So hopefully we'll be looking at that for the 13-14 season.
Let's look at it from the opposite perspective. Is there a criteria in which the traveling production company seeks from venues?
Yes. All sorts of the technological things. Will it fit in your theater? And most shows are now designed to fit in most large theaters. And the Mortensen is a relatively good-sized theater, so most touring shows can fit in the Mortensen. But they look at, what is the route? If, they would love to be able to take a show from Boston to Providence to Hartford to Albany, but all these theater schedules don't always work out like that. So sometimes they've got to go, okay, we're going to be in Providence this week, then we're going to be in Des Moines, and then we're going to be back in Hartford. And sometimes, is it worth routing a show like that for them? So that's a whole different aspect of the business. How do you route a show? And sometimes they're very eager to, like, we've got this week, this hole in our schedule, and we're passing through Hartford, and we may get a much better deal on the show if it fits into their schedule. It may cost us a little more if we really want the show, as we did last year with Billy Elliot. We were supposed to have it at a particular time of the year. They had to back out for some reason. We really wanted Billy Elliot. And so they actually added a week to their schedule and came back to Hartford. We were the last place they performed in the United States. And it actually went through the roof for us. We had huge success with Billy Elliot, much more success than it had in its most recent market. So we're real excited about that.
You have a faithful following at the Bushnell. In fact, you could even say that there are what you call, like, quote unquote, season ticket holders.
Yeah, that's what they are. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then there are those who just are the casual fan, where it depends on the individual show that's coming. I would think that a smaller venue, you said 250 seats and what was it?
900 and the Belding and 2,800.
2,800, excuse me, 2,800 and 900. Okay. Supply and demand of the shows, where there's only X amount of seats available, can really drive ticket prices high.
Oh yeah, and the industry is going to what we call variable pricing, similar to what you'd find in the airline industry or the hotel industry. As supply gets smaller, prices will go up. And there's whole, algorithms and programs for this. And there's also a lot of gut involved in what might your audience pay for this. And there are some shows where people will pay anything for the best tickets, and that's fine. There's some shows people just want to see, and the least expensive tickets sell out first. And you get a feeling for which show is going to operate in a specific way. No shows operate exactly the same.
So does the Bushnell set the ticket prices, or does
we guide them
the show?
Often? For the Broadway stuff, generally the show will come in and say, we think prices should go up now, and we can say yes or no. Sometimes we'll call them and say, really, prices should go up now. Sometimes they'll say, well, let's raise them $10, and we'll say we think it should be $5. So, that is the whole law of supply and demand.
And what would you suggest for advice as far as a viewer who wants to come to the Bushnell, maybe revisit the Bushnell, a venue that they had seen a show perhaps years ago, and wants to come back, and first and foremost, they notice how different it is and all the additions. What's the best way for them to obtain tickets?
You go through the Bushnell, through our box office.
The Bushnell box office, because there's a plethora of box offices that'll lead you to tickets.
Bushnell box office, Bushnell.org is the website. Very easy, Bushnell.org. Or call the Bushnell box office at 860-987-5900. Those are the two best ways to get tickets. Ticket brokers have very sophisticated programs in the secondary ticket market where they buy up lots of tickets as soon as they go on sale. It can create tremendous scarcity, and you end up buying a ticket through a ticket broker and paying more than you would have had you gone directly through the Bushnell. Sometimes when shows are sold out, it is true the only way to get a ticket is to go through a ticket broker, i.e. scalper, to use the old-fashioned term. We would prefer that we retain as many tickets as the Bushnell as possible. That way you know what you're getting is a ticket that actually represents a seat in our hall. You know who you're dealing with, and you really are going to get the best price. And you're always going to get the best price if you're a season ticket holder. So consider, especially for this upcoming season with Book of Mormon,
that's a hot ticket.
You may well actually, if you bought a season subscription, you may pay less for that subscription than you will end up paying for a pair of Book of Mormon tickets when that time comes.
Really?
It's possible. I don't know what tickets will. I don't know how big demand is going to be and how much the national.
Well, that was the big winner, wasn't it?
Yeah, it won like 13 Tony Awards a few years ago. Yeah. It's huge.
Speaking with Paul Marty, communications manager over at the Bushnell, you kind of teased a little bit with some of the shows that are up and coming next season, or even if you can foresee the future thereafter. Can you give me some insight? Can you give us a scoop on what's kind of in the works that you're working on?
I can tell you all about next season. We open with Miss Saigon, which is it's a rare instance of us actually producing a show. We're producing it with 4 presenting houses. It's not a national tour coming through. It's one that we are producing on our own. So it's brand new. Okay. It's not coming from anywhere. We'll be the second venue that has it, and it's a big full-scale production, just like Broadway. But we decided it was time to bring Miss Saigon back to Hartford. We also like to produce every once in a while, just because we can. And then we're going to Flashdance. That'll be in October. And in November, we have a show I'm very excited about because it's a wonderful family show. It did really, really well in New York last year. And I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it's magical. It's called A Christmas Story. And it's based on the movie we all love, the Red Ryder BB gun,
sure.
Shoot Your Eye Out, Ralphie, Tongue in the Pole, and all those moments are in the show, and it's been musicalized, and it's terrific.
I didn't even know that was a musical.
Yeah, it really just opened in New York last year, so it ran for a short period of time on Broadway Christmas season. Last year, you're going to be seeing a lot more of that.
When is that coming to the Bushnell?
In November, a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. It's slightly early for the holidays, but we sort of get a jump on the holidays. It will definitely put you in the holiday spirit.
How long will that be here for?
A week. It's on our Broadway series. Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah. And then we start next year, and we go into War Horse and Peter and the Starcatcher, the 2 Tony-nominated shows, or Tony-winning shows that I talked about earlier. And then in March, the big show everybody's waiting for, Book of Mormon. So that's going to be there for 2 weeks.
Are tickets already on sale for these?
No.
How far in advance do you recommend?
Book of Miss Saigon tickets will be on sale shortly if they're not already. I'm not exactly sure when this will air, but Miss Saigon tickets are almost available. Season ticket packages are available now. We've reseated the current subscribers, and now we'll be taking on new season ticket subscribers. The rest of the season, except for Book of Mormon, will be on sale in late August for single tickets, and then Book of Mormon will go on sale in late October.
Can you go in? What is a season ticket? How much does that run somebody?
I'm not sure. Every year it's a little bit different because it's really based on what the shows cost us to bring in, and so then we have to balance everything out. Some shows are less expensive, so
the individual shows. But I mean,
yes.
is there a blanket price for a season ticket?
It depends on where you're sitting, what night you want to come. I think it ranges anywhere from about I don't even know, $170 or something up to $400 or $500 for
the season.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. And but go to bushnell.org. All the information is there.
I was actually expecting to hear something like maybe twice or 3 times that.
Oh no! You can get a really nice season ticket package for a few $100s.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's you're talking about how. Producing, it's going to be you're producing your own show there.
Miss Saigon, yes.
The Miss Saigon show, right. Yeah. Is that the trend? Is that the new thing that's to be done, is producing your own shows?
No,
or are there even trends?
There's not a trend in that sense. I mean, we were one of the producers on Addams Family, which is a big Broadway show, and then did a tour. We've produced a couple of things over the years. Every couple of years, we do bring in something that we just feel like doing, that maybe there's not something on tour that's comparable or that fits into the schedule, or we just, we want to open with something fresh that no one's seen. And so Miss Saigon, this brand new production of Miss Saigon, fits the bill for this season.
Challenges. I mean, you look like you really engage your career here. You have such a passion for it. Certainly, there's got to be some speed bumps along the way. I mean, I would think like anything. I mean, you ever bang your head against the wall and go, "Oh my goodness, we really," there's a show that you really want to get in, and you have the audience for it, but either the timing or the touring schedule that you were just mentioning is just not coinciding. What are the biggest challenges that you have?
The biggest challenges are educational. It is making someone understand what a show like War Horse or Peter and the Starcatcher that they are less familiar with, making them understand what that show is. Because those two next year, I promise you, if you come and see either of those, you will be thoroughly entertained.
Well, that was a movie, War Horse,
really
wasn't
moved. But the movie is based on the play. This is a very interesting story of how that came about. Originally, there was a book, which was a children's book. And the National Theatre in Britain adapted that book for the stage. And Kathleen Kennedy, who is Steven Spielberg's producing partner, Kathleen's, I can't remember, her son. Her son was in England and wanted to go see a show and said he was going to take his mom to see the War Horse. She hadn't heard of it. She didn't know what it was. Okay, I'll go. We'll see the show. She was blown away. And it really, it is a spectacle. The show is... It really, it's hard to describe, and that's the education.
Yeah, I was going to say, how you translate that to a stage is...
Yeah. And so Kathleen said, Steven Spielberg, you have to come see the show. You have to look at this. He came and saw the show. It's like, I want to make a movie out of this. And the movie is very different than the stage production. The movie is very literal with real horses. The stage version uses puppet horses, which... 2 minutes into the show, you don't think of as puppets. You think of these as live horses. It is amazing. Wow. They take 3 people to operate. They move like real horses. They react like real horses. They become very, very real. And he was so taken with the show, he had to produce the movie. And so now we do try to make the point that the show came first, and it's a little bit different. It's not as dark as the movie was.
Okay.
It really is, the show itself is an anthem for peace. It takes place in wartime, but it is a love story between a boy and this horse. And I don't want to give away any of the endings, but it's much more upbeat than perhaps the movie was.
Wow, can't wait. Sounds like you got a full slate ahead at the Bushnell.
It's always a fun season, but this is a blockbuster season with Mormon and War Horse and Peter and Starcatcher.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
One more time, the web address is?
Bushnell.org, and
the phone number?
The phone number is 860-987-5900.
He's Paul Marty, Communications Director at the Bushnell, in case you can't tell, although you exude all this enthusiasm for it. It sounds like you've got an exciting season coming up, and don't be surprised if you see me at one or two of your...
Come see a show.
I can't wait. On the other side of the break, we have Jerry Longo, curator over at the Connecticut State Police Museum. Stay with us.
One in every 110 children is diagnosed with autism.
That makes autism more common than childhood cancer, juvenile diabetes, and pediatric AIDS combined.
Autism is a developmental disorder that makes it exceedingly difficult for children to interact with the world around them.
Given to Autism Speaks funds research into its causes, prevention, treatments, and with your help, a cure for autism.
Visit www.autismspeaks.org to find out how you can help make a difference. Please give generously.
What are you looking at, punk?
Nice shoes. What are you, homeless?
Ugly slut.
What are you doing here, loser?
No one likes to get bullied. No one likes a bully. Chances are, you've experienced bullying. Whether you were bullied, you bullied someone else, or you saw someone being bullied. Now is the time to say something.
Don't be a bully.
Don't be a bully.
Don't be a bully.
Don't be a bully.
Let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to Common Sense Connecticut. Joining me now is Jerry Longo, curator, known as the chairman quote, I'm going to put that in quotes, chairman of the board, so to speak, over at the Connecticut State Police Alumni Association. First and foremost, I bet there's a lot of people who didn't even know that the Connecticut State Police even has a museum.
Too many people don't know it.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I'm here tonight.
And well, first of all, what things can be found at a state police museum, and who goes to this?
Well,
former retired state police officers or Joe Q citizen?
Yeah, it's geared for, it's basically mostly an educational center.
Okay.
It's a museum and an educational center. Okay. We're a nonprofit. We started several years ago. And it's geared towards anybody that wants to learn about the history of the state through our eyes. We're at all the major events in the state, so it's kind of a different slant on history if you want to learn. Right. We've got everything from cars, machine guns, handcuffs, billy clubs. One really neat artifact that we just came into from Florida was Amelia Earhart's autograph on a dollar bill.
Where did that come from?
It was given to a trooper who stopped her for speeding in the early 1930s. And they had a long discussion about flight and speed, and she thought that if people had a medical certificate, they should be able to drive as fast as they want, just like pilots do. And the trooper wanted her autograph, and all he had was his ticket book with him and a dollar bill, and he took out the dollar bill and she autographed it to him, and it went to his son, who is a surgeon, retired, living in Florida now, and he flew it up to us.
You're giving Amelia Earhart a ticket?
He didn't. No, he just got the autograph. He didn't give her the ticket. The argument worked for her. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's all in who you know, right?
Right.
If you got Amelia Earhart pulled over. Yeah. Oh my goodness, where in Connecticut did this happen?
It happened up in the Danielson area.
Oh, in Danielson.
Yeah, she lived in Connecticut. She was married to the Putnam family, which is from Connecticut. So.
Look at that. When was it created?
The department?
Well, we'll start with the state police, and then we'll go to the museum.
State Police Department was created in 1903.
Okay.
So we're 110 years old now. And the museum is 2 years old.
What was the impetus of creating this? And I know you said, well, it's to educate people as well, but there's other ways you can go about educating the public, but to make a conscious decision you're going to open up a museum and educational center,
right.
What was the impetus behind that?
Education of the public of what we do. Most people see the state police as a highway group of ticket writers, and we cover almost half the towns in the state with resident trooper programs, and where towns don't have police departments. We're involved in the day-to-day life of many people in the state.
You're a retired sergeant from state police, right? What would be a misconception that you think the public has towards the state police?
That we just write tickets. I mean, really, we just write tickets. And I don't think that's not the case at all.
No, of course not. But that's because that's what the people see.
In their rearview mirror.
In their rearview mirror.
Yeah, that's the most memorable thing. And then it's the power of 10. You get your ticket and you tell 10 of your friends that you got a ticket and it wasn't a real happy experience for you, and that spreads. So.
And of course, the story goes, everyone was speeding. They singled me out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you hear the story. Yeah, we all hear the stories. Yeah.
So let's go back to the visitors. You've been open for 2 years.
Right.
Are you finding that you're getting a lot of former troopers coming in and saying, "Oh, I was a trooper in this era," and they're feeling nostalgic and they want to reminisce about the days in which they were on patrol? Or are you genuinely finding, children or young adults coming in who just want to educate themselves about how things, or perhaps even doing a study, perhaps they'd like to pursue a career one day, in law enforcement?
It's broken down after being open. We were open for almost the first year just to our members. We thought we owed it to them that they could come in and enjoy their legacy with their families, and then we opened to the public a year. We did 2 openings. We did one for department members, civilian and sworn, and then we did a year later. We did an opening to the public. It was good.
Yeah.
And what we've broken down into is several categories. One is a lot of legacies. People want to know about their father or their mother's time on the job because maybe they didn't talk about it, or they passed. It was their grandfather even. and they'll come in and they'll say, my grandfather was a trooper back in the 30s, and I have one picture of him. Do you have anything else? And we do a lot of research for them. It's really fun for us.
You get most of your artifacts from former troopers, or as you were saying, from people who had a grandfather who is the only photo I have of him. What are the main artifacts that people are presenting with you? Are they photographs? Are they former batons? Are they, that my grandfather had this in storage, he's long since passed?
I just had a small fundraiser at the Berlin batting cages. We did a little mini golf and raised some money. And one gentleman came up, and he was a retired trooper, and I know him, and he said, here, he played the golf, and he paid his $6, whatever it was. He gave us $50 in cash for a donation. I thought it was very generous. Then he said, now I need you to come over to the trunk of my car. And I said, why? He had 2 weapons for us. He had a commemorative pistol from our 75th anniversary, and he had his service revolver that he'd hung on to for many, many years, and he turned them over to us. So, I mean, everything from weapons to photographs. I mean, intimate things like parents and grandparents' badges. Sometimes we encourage the people to keep those for their families.
Sure.
I mean, I do have a lot of badges. I don't need, there's only so many badges you can put on display.
What are you looking for? What would you like? What would really be the real cool thing?
The things I want, I just want memories and histories and be able to fill in gaps with photos and stories about the men and women of the job.
Are there tour guides for this?
Yeah, everything's guided.
Providing a narrative as you're walking around?
We're trying to modernize. Like I said, we've got very few volunteers that work for us, and we just installed a computer system on our 2nd floor. It's like one office upstairs, and we've got some touchscreen TVs, which we're trying to get operational, but we've got to upload all this information. We've got hundreds of hours of video and thousands of photographs, and we'd like people to be able to do things on their own.
Wow.
And
pretty cool. Now, we're talking this facility. It's in Meriden, by the way. It's fairly close to the the training academy, right? Because the training
it's just down the road from the training academy.
Talk to me about the building itself.
Yeah, it used to be the administration building for the Meriden School for Boys. Bad boys, I guess. And the state took it over in the 70s. It's a complex of buildings. The forensic laboratory is there. Different units for the state police are there. And this was the administration building. And the cool thing about the administration building was it has a paymaster's office. So we have a caged, which is now part of our store. So it's got like a caged window. And it also had a vault in it, which is where we store our weapons.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was very
It's
convenient. Yeah. And it looks like a museum from the outside. It looks kind of neat.
Do you see the evolution of the cruisers and of the uniforms? And I got to tell you, I mean, the state police, they truly have, and I'm not sucking up here, my friend, they have one of the best looking uniforms that you'll find.
You're sucking up a little bit, Gary.
Well, you know, I know. You go to the Big E, okay, and you see all New England states all represented in the respective state buildings. You know, and some look better than others, but the Connecticut State Police, they look sharp.
It depends on which trooper you're talking to, because there are some guys that like the boots and breeches for Rhode Island, and there's a couple of guys that like, certain things about Mass State Police's uniforms and stuff. We critique each other. We're all macho individuals, men and women, but but we kind of check out the other guys to see what they're wearing. They just love those Rhode Island leather. They wear those long leather coats in the wintertime and stuff.
All right.
And there's certain things,
I'm sticking with the Connecticut State Police.
We have won some awards for the best uniforms.
There you go.
And stuff, so,
There you go. What's changed the most from 1903? I mean, you're talking about 110 years ago, and I know I understand motor vehicles and so on and so forth, but through the evolution of the state police, what have you seen? What's been the most noticeable difference?
Well, the state police are a paramilitary organization, and if you look at the military organizations in general, what normally changes is weapons, forensics, and not so much uniforms or, like you said, cars, but the technology and communications. The communication stuff is just, it's wild today. When I got on, I had a couple of channel radio, and you could only talk to two troops shared a radio band, and now they've got these 1,000 channel radios, and You can go anywhere with them, and we had dead spots everywhere. And
Is that right?
You needed to race around the side of a mountain to be able to talk, or get high or whatever, So now the communications are much better.
Is becoming a trooper much more difficult nowadays than it was back in the day?
Way back in the early days, you could almost be appointed to be a trooper, and it was a tough job. The training has gone and increased too. That's another area that's really expanded in training. Training now is about 28 weeks long.
It's more militant.
It's like paramilitary training.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a boot camp atmosphere.
They break you
for
down.
for 6.5 months. Yeah,
to build you back up the way that they
learn
want
how to
you.
make a bed, learn how to shine your shoes and the belt buckles, and very regimented. You march everywhere. You get punished a lot. You do a lot of push-ups. Really? You develop a lot of upper body strength.
Is that shown or displayed in any way, shape, or form?
It is. We've got a really great training video that we just picked up, and it was the last training troop. And the Alumni Association that I belong to, we are invited instructors at the academy every year. We teach the history portion on the third day. They still have that deer in the headlights look, but they do pay attention. It's a couple hours long, and we go from 1903 right up until now.
And I'll bet they're surprised on something. I'll bet they learn.
They're shocked, yeah. They had no idea. They knew the law enforcement thing, they knew the pride and the loyalty and all those good things, but they just didn't know some of the things that we teach them when we teach the history portion.
What is it? Anything specific?
It goes literally from 1903 till now, and it shows the progression of the training, what the rigors of the job were, and it really highlights the fallen, as our guys were falling through the years. The 21 members that we lost are highlighted, and you go through. And this year we were riding motorcycles, but this guy perished in a motorcycle accident, and we show his picture, and it's a very sobering experience for him, but it's entertaining too for him.
We have some photos that you brought. I'm gonna try to go into what we're looking at. Yeah,
that's one of our old telephone relay systems. That was like Andy of Mayberry when he would call, and that's what he was. That's what he was calling. He could be.
What year is this now?
That goes in the 30s and the early 40s, and that was one of our pieces. That if you get into the museum and you take a look at that, where those plugs go in, you'll actually see the troop designations of Troop H and headquarters and all that stuff. It's
really?
Yeah, it was buried for us. And
what are we looking at now? Oh, these are some.
That's the fallen 21 guys that we've lost, starting with Pearl Roberts in 1922 and ending with Kenneth Ray Hall in 2010, and everybody in between.
So, what feeling do you get when you see that?
I get sometimes emotional when I go in that room. We actually have a couple of chairs there with some Kleenex because things happen in that room that I never thought would happen to me as a retiree.
I'll bet.
But one of our goals as an alumni group and a fraternal organization is that we have a motto in the state police that we never forget. So we constantly remember those people. But I had a woman in there holding the hand of a small child, probably 7, 8 years old, and she had a state police hat under her arm, and she was pointing at one of the pictures and said, "That's your grandfather," on the wall, and I was like, it was one of our auxiliary troopers' wives, Mrs. Mingione, and she brought her husband's hat to us, which is in the museum now.
You must have known some of the officers that were
I did.
on that wall.
Yep, I did. Yeah.
That's, what are we looking at right here?
That is a very beautiful vintage light, which was donated by Connecticut Lighting. So they get.
Oh, really? Nice.
The director family helped us with all the lighting for the museum, the spotlighting and everything else, and they came in and did a great job. He came in the building and he fell in love with the building, and he said, "You have to have that light." And I said, "What light is it?" And he was talking about this vintage light, and it's got a restoration center in Hartford. I'd already been to the restoration center.
And
I took out my phone and I said, "Is it this one?" He goes, "No." I said, "Is it this one?" He goes, "Yes." He said, "You've already been there?" He said, "Are you skunking me? Did you do this on purpose?" I said, "No, I just, it's beautiful. It's got Lady Liberties on it and fleur-de-lis, and it just looks like it belongs in the building. It's absolutely gorgeous, and they donated it."
Who is this?
That's a trooper named Olson, and that's an oil painting which was done of him standing by a cruiser. back in the 40s, and it's just a really cool oil painting that was done. And I don't know who the creator of it was, but it's
much more difficult to be a trooper back then, or no?
It was more well, it's always difficult to be involved in law enforcement, whether local, state, federal, or anything else. Back then, the brutality came in the fact that the early troopers would work 30 days in a row and then get 1 day off. And they lived in a barracks. And if you wanted more than 1 day off, you had to ask permission. And they rode motorcycles in inclement weather, and for several years even.
How do you do that?
Just when you could, because to save fuel and everything else, you rode your bike as much as you could. And very many of our early losses in the department were to motorcycle accidents. So many so that the state, the public in the state actually petitioned to get the motorcycles taken away from us because we were losing troopers at a kind of a rapid rate.
Yeah,
motorcycle accidents.
When you think of motorcycle police, they're more municipal as opposed to state. The state, do they even have state?
For years, many years, troopers were issued a motorcycle and a car.
But when did that stop?
In the late 30s, and then it was revitalized again, and then we've got motorcycles back. We still have motorcycles, yeah.
What's the relationship that that the museum and actually that the Police Alumni Association has with the department itself?
Right now, it's fantastic. We assist them at every turn. They've assisted us at every turn. The commissioner and the colonel's office have been great. We get whatever we want for artifacts that we need. Even now, we're starting to plan ahead and take things that we know are going to become artifacts in the future. That's tough to do, you know, is to store those kinds of things. You know, what's going to be an artifact? I mean, what in this room is going to be an artifact, 20 years from now, if you had to pick one thing? Would you pick the plant or would you pick the book? I mean, it's tough. So they help us. We also help, like I said, we train at the academy. We help them out at the Big E. We help man the booth at the Big E. We do a lot of health and welfare for active and retired troopers. If they're ill, we go and visit them. If, God forbid, they pass away, we've done a lot of funeral details with vintage cars. We'll put we'll have an old timer pass away and we'll put the 58 Ford, in front of the funeral home. And it just, as people walk in, it's just an awesome reminder of what that guy did, or what that woman did when they were younger.
Having said that, is recruiting membership of retired state police officers a challenge, or is it something that they're...
Yeah, it's something that no matter how hard we try, we're just not that great at. And I think the membership feel that they have to wait till they're retired to join.
Oh, they don't?
It's the Connecticut State Police Alumni Association. Once you graduate the academy, you're eligible to join.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know. See, yeah, you didn't even
no,
you didn't know that either. Would you like to join?
I was being presumptuous. I assumed that.
And so what we did was we started a new program. When I teach at the academy, they get to know me or whoever else is with me as the history guys. And then we also help the department with several of their what they call heritage nights, where they bring the troopers' families in during training, and they show the family what the training is like. And we'll bring vintage things there, and we'll bring some old timers like yours truly and some other members on our board. We'll talk to the families about what it was like and what they can, look forward to experiencing. And at that time, we kind of hint that we're there. And then at graduation, while they're still taking orders from their instructors, this last class, we ordered the instructor to write all their email addresses down on a piece of paper. And they were ordered to do it, and they just went and snapped to it and did it. And then what we did was we sent them our newsletter for 6 months for free and said, at the end of the 6 months, if you'd like to join, you can. We're trying everything we can to recruit these guys. It's $15 a year. It's not that bad. But
so why is it such a challenge then? I don't get $15 a year.
Because I honestly think it's just they're so focused on what they have to do. It's an awesome thing when you get issued your badge and your weapon and your gun belt and your cruiser. To be thinking about joining an organization and reading a newsletter is the last thing on their mind.
Well, then have the
They want to get out in the field and they want to,
How about getting a list of those who are going to be retiring in the next 12 months?
Those guys know about us.
Reintroduce yourself at that point.
There's several levels of the guys that know about us. And one level is that we also give scholarships. We have a section of our thing where we give scholarships to troopers' families. And they have to be a member to get a scholarship. So about the time the kids are 12, 13, 14 years old, guys will start to join for the $15 a year because then they get some scholarship money.
Now, you've been retired, you said, for 10 years?
Yeah,
What
10 years.
brought you then to not only join but take on such a position with?
I was drafted. I didn't.
You were drafted.
I didn't enlist. I went to a meeting and I got sucked into becoming the secretary of the thing, which I thought was relatively easy because I just had to take some notes.
Take notes, right?
And then a couple people left unexpectedly, and they said to me, "Are you interested in the museum? We're going to push the museum, you know." And I said, "I'd love to be the chairman." And they said, "Great.
Wow.
You can be everything, and you are everything." And they just voted me to be the president of the Alumni Association and the chairman of the museum committee. And I'm on a board for the Educational Foundation, which gives the scholarships. So
where's the money from the scholarship derived from?
It's from, they do fundraisers.
Okay. And speaking of which, how does the museum itself, how are they funded? Are they funded by the state police?
No,
or?
the state police, the state of Connecticut itself hasn't funded this project at all.
So you're privately funded.
Right.
You have to raise money.
We raise the money. We've spent years, that's why I said we spent years raising money. We got really good at baking cookies and selling cookies and things, but what we really needed was a home, a place to put all this stuff that we've been accumulating.
Wow. How do people contribute to your organization?
If you go to info@cspaa.com, you can ask any question you want. Like, how can I do this?
Slow down. Say that again.
info@cspaa.com.
Okay, that's good.
It's a Connecticut State Police Academy Alumni Association. So
yeah, that's a mouthful. It's a big acronym there, isn't it?
I was talking to some of your people before, and they said, "What do you want on the bottom of the screen?" I said, "Just make it like this, because the acronym's too." Yeah, it's like the acronyms are really very long.
Talk about, if you can, the floor plan of your museum. Is it sectioned off where?
You know, when we got the building, which was basically a whole thing in itself, we charged up to headquarters one day when Commissioner Danaher was in power. He's now a judge. He's a great guy. We walked into his office and we asked him for a building. And he just looked at us like we were nuts, and I don't blame him. And I said, "Look," I said, we really need some place to preserve our history." And he was very in tune to that. He's a very educated man, and his family history goes back. Relatives of his family have worked for the state since the 1800s.
Oh.
His great-grandfather was a labor commissioner. His grandfather was a U.S. senator for Connecticut, Senator Danaher. His dad was an FBI agent, and then he was a commissioner of the state police department. And now he's a judge. So he was very in tune. We got very lucky. And he pushed to get us one of the buildings at the old Meriden School for Boys, which is now the Mulcahy complex, where we have numerous units of the state police department, including the forensic lab, and the canine guys work out of there. Recruiting is there. The polygraph unit is there. Internal affairs is there.
Can you see polygraph machines or old polygraph machines?
I've got an old polygraph machine. I've got the old teletype machines. We've got the series of uniforms that you had mentioned before that go through the years from the 20s. We got our first uniform in 1921. They worked in plain clothes for the first 18 years or so. We've got uniforms from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And actually, Yale University just donated a huge glass case that holds mannequins. So we're going to have them all encased now.
Oh,
so
nice. Now, what about the old cruisers?
We've got old cars that are described by us as his, hers, ours, and theirs. The state, for many, many years, has been very tolerant and has actually kept some cruisers aside that were vintage, now considered vintage cars.
Sure.
We also have recreated cars. We've cloned cars. We built cars from we have a 1941 Ford. We have a 58 Ford. We've got a 78, an 88. We've got a 64 Harley Davidson. We have a 1911 Henderson motorcycle replica because we couldn't afford a 1911 Henderson because they're like six figures to buy one.
The best thing that a person watching this, or that a person who is visiting the Connecticut State Police Alumni Association Museum, artifacts are really nice, and you can see how that they were used back in their day. But I would think the stories that they can share with you is probably trumps anything tangible.
The genealogy or something got very big, and like I said, people want to learn about their relatives, their former relatives, and their parents, and their current parents, or whatever it is. And a lot of people just want to go back in time. There's these people
Sure.
that they like the old candy store. They like the old Barney, you know, with the gun with the one bullet thing. I mean, they like
Barney
that kind of
Fife,
stuff. They like the siren that goes.
Yeah, the Adam
It
12,
takes like 5 minutes to wind down.
right.
You know, they like that kind of
And
stuff.
the best part is you don't even need to be a police officer or a former police officer to visit the Connecticut State Police Alumni Association Museum. Please visit their website, ConnecticutStatePoliceMuseum.com. They are located in Meriden. They would love for you to stop by, educate yourself on all things new and old with Connecticut State Police. I want to thank Jerry Longo, the curator and the chairman of the Connecticut State Police Alumni Association, and also our guest earlier, Paul Marty, communications manager from the Bushnell. I'm Gary Byron. Thanks so much for watching Common Sense Connecticut. Until next time, my friends, have a good one, everybody. Good night.